Well, Jackie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I know we met at an open house a couple years ago, and I've been, bugging you about it and bugging you. And you said, we're 2020, getting near the end. We're going to make the best. It's going to turn the year around right now. It's going to be you coming on the Get to Know Your Wedding Pro podcast.
I knew it.
So introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do. Yes, we've been waiting for you all year. This is what's going to do it.
Well, everyone, I'm here. My name is Jackie Harbour, and I'm the owner of A Standard of Grace Events, and we're based here in Seattle, Washington. We're a wedding and event planning company, and we do coordination as well. We really like to focus on the relationships between myself and the couple, myself and the clients, and the relationships between the client and their family members and their friends, and how that all comes together for a really wonderful, wonderful event. And if I can focus on those relationships and really get to know my couples and their family and all their family quirks, I can really help them make good choices, make good design choices, and ultimately put on a fantastic event.
It's the toughest thing for planners, especially with everything going on this year. Like you said, you're talking about relationships and building that, and you guys really have been just the counselors, the grief therapists, for everybody. I mean, and I mean that 100% serious. Like, I know that any message I get from any one of my couples, any planner that's with them has had that 100-fold right before it even comes to me. So more than ever, I'm always an advocate for wedding planners, and having someone help, but especially right now with everything going on, I think it's just crazy to try to do this by yourself without knowing what's going on.
I've gotten that from my couples that, once we've postponed the event, they said, gosh, I don't know how I would have done this without a planner. Like, I'm so glad I hired you in the first place before 2020 hit, but I'm so glad I have you now. And I think to what you said, there's a new understanding of what planners do and how they can be helpful and going forward. And right now, there's just an added benefit to having someone who, we don't have all the answers, but we can definitely work with you to find the answers and to stay up to date on all the current regulations that are constantly changing, as you know.
Well, that's the thing is I just think that, even if we don't know, it's just some semblance of just knowing that there's someone else there that you can bounce ideas off of. Am I crazy to be worried about this, or should I be worried about that? I mean, it's just, no one has the answers, but knowing that you've kind of got, you guys are doing the research and keeping up to date,
Yeah. And I definitely had to be, I'm of course, one of the many hats of being a planner is to be a sounding board and to be a therapist. But especially this year, couples, come to you and say, what should we do? Or we want to wait. What do you think? And all I can do is come at them with all the information I have and give them the best possible situations and just have hope for 2021.
So to get into a little bit about you, I know, and we've talked at events and stuff. You're from the area or no? I can't remember.
I'm originally from California.
Okay, that's right. And so, we were 49ers fans. We were talking before we got on the call.
Sorry to all the Seahawks fans, but sorry, not sorry.
So what brought you up to Seattle? How'd you find your way up here?
I had been up here a couple times on vacation for a couple of friends' weddings, but what ultimately brought us up here was my husband went and got his MBA, and he pivoted to a career that brought him to Seattle. And so at that time, I was working a corporate 9-to-5 job, supporting a software product and training, and decided at that point, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to do it full time. And I'd went to Cal State East Bay and gotten my wedding planner certification 2 years before that. And then we moved up here in 2016 and helped out with a couple wedding planners, assisted a couple wedding planners, got my feet wet, and then last year opened up a Standard of Grace.
I'm always so curious to hear for people, all I know is Seattle and we kind of, stumbled our way into this wedding stuff, but kind of, entering in, maybe knowing that's what you wanted to do, right? Coming to Seattle. What was the industry like here? Was it challenging to make connections? Was it easy to make connections?
It was the Seattle freeze. And I know people have said that a bunch and people warned me about it and people from Seattle warned me about it. I did not get that. I did not get that. The first people we met here on either side of us, both of our neighbors welcomed us with open arms, helped us, gave us stuff, told us where, here's this Facebook group. You should be a part of this one. This is where you should go for groceries. Immediately, we had a great introduction to Seattle. And then when once we moved into our house, I started looking at planners in the area and, hey, can I assist for you? Can I buy you coffee? Can I talk to you? Everyone was very, very welcoming, and networking events, again, very welcome. And, I think the greater Seattle wedding community is very community over competition, which I love. And even the planners, the subsection of the wedding community, the planners, I have a lot of planner friends that I can go to and say like, hey, what'd you do for this? Or, like you said, am I crazy? Am I handling this right? Or what did you use for your software? Your client management software. So I never have felt left out. I've always just felt welcomed.
So you were talking about working in corporate before. How did you get involved in that? You said you were managing software, right? What were you kind of doing in your corporate side before you transitioned out?
So I was basically like a client. I managed a software product. Once the product was sold, it came to me. It was a very small company, so there was probably about 5 or 6 of us. So I did the training, the management, any questions they had, they came to me. I became very knowledgeable in the product. And it just was at that point, I kind of hit a wall and I wasn't passionate about it. I was good at it. I could do it. It was very good security. But I just wasn't passionate about it. And at, quarterly reviews, or performance reviews, they would ask you, what do you want to do next? And I could never come up with something because I couldn't see myself doing it for 20, 30 years. And I really thought, what could I do that I was passionate about?
It's so interesting kind of figuring out that line because there's some people, and they pick what they want to do. They're in something and they go. And then there's people, I was in news and I just like you just kind of hit a wall. And it's weird because there's some people that do the same job for 50 years and never look back. And they do, I think they say that, nowadays it maybe is a little more common to kind of bounce around a little bit more. Did you just not feel like challenged enough? You just felt like you had ideas that you're like, I want to go more than kind of this box is holding me in.
Yeah, I think it went back to when I graduated college. I was initially going to be an attorney. So I thought about being a criminal defense attorney. I thought about being a prosecutor, and I was ready to I took the LSATs. I was ready to go to law school. But before I applied to law school, I had kind of a come to Jesus moment and thought, is this something I want to do? Am I passionate about it? There's aspects of being an attorney that I really liked, but what job could I do where I could translate some of those skills or my passion behind why I wanted to be an attorney to something I actually liked? And I initially got into one job and that led me to another job. And I just kept going along that route. I was good at it. I could do it. It was fun. But then I thought, I can't do this forever. And so when After I got married, I still continued staying involved in wedding trends and wedding magazines and all that. And that was a constant behind the scenes when I would help friends, when I would help family members, when I would, you know, help them out with their weddings. I still found myself enjoying that. And I thought, well, could I do that? Could I do that full time? Because I do like that and I am passionate about that.
Yeah, I could see you being like a defense attorney. I mean, I think you're pretty like no nonsense in a good way, or
Mhm.
like a prosecutor. I mean, I could, but it's just so interesting, because we were just talking before we recorded, nobody knows a lot of these things about anybody, right? Before they got on, and like, who would know, studying the LSATs, wanting to be a lawyer, wanting to be all these different things, right? And then wind up I think sometimes weddings get like a weird rap or like a weird, oh, you like even for video, I always deal with it. Like, what you do weddings, like, do you know how to do other stuff? And it's like, we all, have all this different knowledge and experience. But it's just interesting. It's always interesting to find out, the people's stories behind the stuff.
I know. I know.
So, so you said you had gotten married and that kind of inspired your interest kind of in the industry. Is that right?
Yes.
And so how did your guys' wedding go first off?
Ours, we got married in way back in 2009. So many trends ago, but we got married in Michigan, where my husband's family is from, my extended family is from. We lived there for a while. We were very focused on making sure that all of the most important people in our lives could be there, whether it be college friends, whether it be family. We both have big families. And it was important for our grandparents to be there. And they all lived in Michigan at the time. So we were actually living in California at the time. So we were doing all of this out of state. So any couples that plan weddings out of state, I've gotten a good chunk of them because I say, well, I planned my wedding. I helped, luckily I had two family friends that were event planners, corporate event planners. And they stepped in as my wedding planners. But I have background in history with planning weddings out of state, which was a whole nother layer to wedding planning. So I really overall had a wonderful wedding planning experience and a wonderful wedding day, partly because I had two people who were, stepping in and running the show and helping out. And I was never stressed. I always knew my wedding was being handled. I always knew that I could talk to that person. I always knew that relationship was there. And on my wedding day, I was present. I was happy. I was relaxed. I never had to worry about, well, are all my bridesmaids lined up? Is the officiant mic'd? Has he talked to the DJ yet? Is the videographer there? I never had to worry about any of that. And so since I had such a good experience, I wanted to make sure that other couples were able to have that same experience.
Yeah, it's tough right now because, with 2020 weddings, we've either had, the really small, legal elopement, with a planner and like five people. So like everything is run really well, right? Because there's just not, hopefully a lot of room for error on that. But then, we've had a lot of kind of the DIY, more than usual lately. I mean, we kind of started in that. We did a lot of DIY starting off, that's great, but it does lead, I think like what you said, it being present, it just leads to a lack of them being able, bridegroom, whoever being able to be present on their day because they are facilitating a lot of questions, a lot of, setting up things on their own or directing where things are, need to be set up. And it's been really interesting to me lately to pay attention to that and be like, man, I would hate to have to be answering all these questions if it was my wedding day. It's tough.
Exactly. And not only for the couple getting married, but for the family, because ultimately sometimes it's not the couple that gets the questions, it's the mother of the bride, it's the mother of one of the partners or one friend who's also a bridesmaid. and everyone already has their roles or their purpose in the greater ceremony and reception. Let's focus on that. Be the mother, be the father, be the officiant. Focus on that and really be present and really enjoy that moment, because it's going to go by so fast. And you're going to sit back and go, well, gosh, I wish I wasn't running around the ceremony trying to set up chairs. I wish I was practicing my speech.
Yeah, I had a video consult last night for videography, and they were asking that, well, we're not really sold on this, or what do we want to do? And I said the amount of things you will forget about your wedding day is insurmountable. I can't even express to you, right? Like I can't even, unless you've been married, you just can't. And so the less things you have to do, and the more, like you said, you can be present and focus on that, that all helps to kind of retain part of that thing, because otherwise you're going to be even more spent and distracted and pulled in a bunch of different directions. But you can't even describe how much like you will forget about your wedding day.
And you've been married, I've been married. I look back and I think, gosh, I remember walking into my reception space and seeing it all put together. And I remember that. I remember being present right before I walked down the aisle. I remember what that felt like. I remember, dancing with my mom on the dance floor, and I didn't have to worry about queuing up, the first dances and all that. I could be, and I ate my meal. I ate my meal and I had a drink. So that's another thing. If you work with me, I will make sure you eat. Yes. And I will make sure vendors eat too. I'm the last to eat. I will make sure vendors eat as well.
So you said you went and studied, you got your wedding planning, certification. So you were kind of interested in this, right? What was it like because that's the step, right? I mean, that's one step into doing that. What was that motivation? Just like, hey, I want to kind of dip my toes in this now and see what's going on.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I wanted to get in. I kind of researched it. I was living back in California at the time, and I was researching the market, and the San Francisco Bay Area market it's very saturated. There's a lot of people there. It's wonderful, but there's a lot of wedding planners. So I was very hesitant about joining the market. So I wanted to make sure I had, I don't know, a leg up, or something to distinguish myself. So I started looking. I found this course, and it really gave me a basis, a good introduction to what an event planner does. It was just a good basis. And from that, I went and just did my independent research and just did my research on the Seattle market, and went from there.
When you decided to make your own business, and do your own planning, I was kind of asked this, like, what did you want that, like, your thesis to be, like, as a wedding planner? A standard of grace events, that definitely has like a certain just feeling of peace, for lack of a better word. I mean, what did you want, I keep hitting this. You wanted to differentiate, how did you want to do that?
Don't worry, I talk with my hands as well.
I'm like, so I'm the worst.
You might see my hands. I always loved the word grace as a name. One of my favorite actresses is Princess Grace Kelly. My cat's middle name, yes, my cat has a middle name, is Grace. But I've always loved the meanings behind the word grace, and there's various meanings for it. But the ones that I focus on are simple elegance and courteous goodwill. And that's something that I really pride myself on. And I really wanted to make sure that came across in the planning process, in my relationship with the couple, with the friends, the family, with the vendors, with the venue. I wanted to make sure that they got that from me, and that your event will also feel that way. A sense of peace, a sense of calm, goodwill. I will do as much as I can for my clients. I will do as much as I can for my vendor friends. As I said before, I really value those relationships, and even more so, 2020 has instilled that in me and how important our relationships and the people in our lives really are.
What did you, when you wanted to get into the Seattle area? I know that you reached out to like a lot of the different venues and planners. I mean, obviously, thought behind that and wanting to kind of educate yourself. You felt like, I mean, obviously, you made it, to where you are now. But would that be advice you would give people, or what would you give advice to people, starting off and wanting to kind of figure out, get their feet wet, and not kind of make a fool of themselves and maybe take on too much?
Well, I think 2020 made a fool of itself. So I think anything we do going forward, we can't compare. But I think the best advice I could say is don't try and do everything at once, because you can't. You can't do a website, you can't network, you can't build your processes, you can't get 20 weddings in a year. You can't do everything. Focus on one thing, get it done, and move on. Because me, I'm type A. I want to do everything, and I want to do it. I want all the details to line up. I want everything to be just right. And I've learned, especially this year, that you can't control everything, and you can't do everything at the same time. You have to give yourself grace. You have to take things one step at a time. But on the networking front, I mean, I have some wonderful vendors that have become some of my closest friends here and will be my closest friends for, I don't know, ever. So I think networking and getting out there, not only for someone new to the area to make friends, because we all know it's hard to make friends as adults, but it's also good to, hey, get my name out there so that when vendor A is, looking for a planner, a client comes to them and go, hey, I really need a planner. Do you know of anybody? They can go to their list and go, wow, I just talked to Jackie a couple weeks ago. I think she'd be really great. Let me give them her name. It's to get your name out there, but also to make those relationships.
Yeah, I think it's so just supporting each other and kind of helping out. I think it's so, I don't know. I would hope 2020 has pushed people more towards that, right? And wanting to be, it's so interesting. We do this XFL dumb podcast now, right? But it's, it's, it's a really small community, right? And what I've noticed about trying to promote things on there versus the wedding industry, right? If we have a new thing or someone's got a new thing, people are cross promoting and sharing and commenting and liking all this stuff. And then I go on to like my wedding stuff and it's, hey, we're giving away this thing for free. Come book with us. Or, hey, we're giving 50% off. Come book with us, trying to undercut. And it's so interesting to have, podcasts in both worlds. And then not that our thing is a business on the expo, it's just fun, but to have kind of a stake in both of those sides. And it is drastically different. And I just wish that, and that's what I try to do with this podcast and the wedding planning podcast and all these things. Like you said, build these relationships. If you're not a good fit, someone else would be a good fit, or if you have advice or someone else, but it's not as much competition. It needs to be more kind of helping each other out. And that's really what I've noticed kind of the last couple of months since doing both of these.
I completely agree, because I think we were talking about before, there's so many couples, there's so many clients, there's so many people out there, and there's not just one planner for everybody. There's not just one videographer for everybody. I think we can only help each other by, like you said, if I'm not a good fit or I'm not available, hey, I know Sally, she's a great planner. I'm gonna give you her information. Because ultimately she'll return the favor, or I'm just putting out goodwill. I'm helping somebody, because someday that may come back to me, and we're all working together and we're all helping each other, because we all need to be kind to each other after this year.
It just, like I said, with that consult we had last night, they were very hesitant about doing video, right? Why should we do this, or, sell yourself. And like you said, there's so many people and other people that are good fit. I did my best kind of, pitch, whatever we're talking. But, I was telling Dorothy, I said, like, this will probably not be one that I follow up with a lot to really try to convince them, right? Like if they got me and they got whatever, that's great. And if they didn't, like I don't want to be, the pressure or coming down the line, like, hey, are you sure? We'll give you a discount
Right.
because and then of course, they emailed me today, like, hey, we loved you, let's do it, right? But I say, but to make that conscious effort of finding the people, because like you said, there are so many, and just really making sure you have it, especially as a planner, and and people that work so closely with the clients, having that good fit, I think is so, it just, especially for you guys, is like paramount necessity.
It's it's really, really important because I mean, the couples that I have from 2020, I will now be with them for like uh, double the time. And I love my couples, so it's just, hey, I get another year with you. Yay. But working with someone as much as we do and as much as I like to do, even with my, day of coordination packages, I still like to be a support line. Like, hey, I'm not heavily involved in your wedding. We're doing day of coordination, but if you need to email me about a question about, I don't know, tips for your website, don't hesitate. Just email me. Send me a message. I can help you, because ultimately, if I'm still connected to them and I'm still involved in their plot in their process, they're keeping me updated. I can help them better when I do step in full time.
So you said that you excel in doing these, planning the wedding out of state, which I couldn't even imagine. I think that just sounds like a nightmare. But what is kind of, what do you find clients that are attracted to you, that you're attracted to? Because it does work both ways. And what's kind of your ideal? I hate to say like ideal client, but what is your
What is your ideal
yeah,
client?
who do you tend to work with the most and enjoy working with?
I enjoy. This is going to sound just corny. Every planner says this, but I enjoy working with couples that are fun. Um, I enjoy couples that can laugh, that we can just have a good time with. But I think I've had a lot of couples across the board, um, different races, LGBTQ, living in different places. But I think a common thing that they all value is their close relationships with their family and their friends, and their focus about putting on a truly wonderful and meaningful event where they are present and they are having a good time. Something that, from my own experience, that I really have tried to instill in my company is enjoying the process. You're planning your wedding a whole lot longer than the day. So if you're hating the process and you're stressed out and you're miserable, and you and I both hear this, is just, oh, I hate planning my wedding, I'm so stressed. That hurts. That hurts me, because I feel sorry. I feel bad for them. And I want to take that away, and I want to say, like, no, 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 I can do that stuff that you don't like. Focus on the cake flavors, focus on the fun stuff, and enjoy the process, because you want to look back and say, wow, I wasn't stressed. I had a good time. Yeah, I was stressed out. The seating chart, my mom wanted this, my dad wanted this. But overall, you have a good experience. And that's something that I really want for my couples.
Yeah, you're either going to spend time or you're going to spend money, planning and doing all that, and it is, and you just have to decide. I always tell the story. My good friend from high school got married, and we did the video, and they wanted to do their own flowers because they were just trying to save anything they could save. I mean, they really tried to do everything on their own. And I saw him day of. I said, how'd it go? He goes, we were up till 4 a.m. doing them, and I said, that is a decision you made. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
so you had to decide, okay, was that $500 we saved or whatever we saved worth being able to be, present with your, soon to be wife the night before your wedding? I don't, and it's not, I mean, you certainly know where my feelings are on that, but it is different for everybody. Right. And so, but yeah, if you don't hire, a planner, there's just so much other crap. And I just couldn't imagine like even quantifying all those things that you have to do versus like just hiring a planner and knowing that's all like it's not even like equatable to like the amount of money that you would be spending in time trying to save all that, you know?
No, I completely agree. And I've, my husband, he often assists at some weddings. So a lot of my couples have met him, and he's been a wonderful assistant. I will plug him. Thank you, Adam. But he really hears me, talking about the couples, talking about the process. Hey, I'm doing this podcast. He really hears a lot about my business and my life. And when he's out with me on wedding days or site inspections, he'll when we get back in the car or whatever, he's like, gosh, I could not do this. Like, you do so much work and you have to remember so much. And there's so much that you are remembering and thinking about. And you never sat down. I had to make you eat because you were just running around. And not that there was any emergencies or anything. It's just, I have to be in a lot of different places. And I love that. But someone looking out and going, you do so much and you don't you don't charge what truly a lot of vendors don't charge truly what we actually accomplish.
No, and just the things that when you've been doing it a long time, and that's why like I really, and especially with 2020, I've gotten so exacerbated just with everything. I mean, not couples especially, but just across the board. I mean, everyone's just done. But I really have gotten to that point with some of this stuff where I'm like, I have forgotten more than you will ever know about, or think to ask, or wonder to ask, or what So like, please, whether it's me or someone else, like trust these professionals. Like we're really trying to, I spend hours every week doing these dumb podcasts, trying to educate and do, but you're like, let's look at this stuff versus, the freebie Craigslist that's just trying to mooch off, or, it's let's put value to you in this knowledge and in the work that you've done to set yourself up to be able to like be in a position to answer these questions and do everything. I just wish more people like, you know.
I agree. And I hope with this year, and especially, here in Washington, the past couple months, the importance of small business. I mean, we're all small businesses. We're all trying to survive here. And I hope that, and I see it now, and I hope it continues, that people are realizing the value of what we do. And especially with all the postponements and the rescheduling and all that, seeing the value of having a professional and not, someone who does it, a couple times a year, or your cousin who planned her baby shower. Like, that's great. And that's wonderful. I'm sure it was a wonderful shower, but there's a lot that comes with hiring a professional.
You were talking earlier about, family and balancing all of that. Do you make a conscious effort to kind of reach out to, the parents and everybody involved? I mean, where does that, just because, especially nowadays, the couple, but then there's all these other needs and everyone else has their ideas and all that. Like, would never even know, right? Like how to manage that as a planner.
Really, for the most part, I am dealing directly with the couple. I'm talking with them. Communication is going with them. It's when it's maybe a site inspection, or it's some vendor appointment, or the rehearsal. That's when I get to meet them. I've heard about them. I obviously know their names. I know where they're sitting. I know a lot about them. And then I finally get to meet them. And that's really wonderful, because then I say, oh my gosh, it's, Mrs. So-and-so. Oh, it's so good to finally meet you. I know so much about you. And we build that rapport, maybe the day before the wedding. And they're like, oh, you're the girl that's been helping them out. Thank you so much. It's usually the moms that are like, thank you so much. And we're so glad we hired somebody because it would have been me.
I was going to ask this before. How does it go? does your husband do a good job helping out? Because I know like Dorothy helped me for like that first summer. I think the first, I was still working this up, but the first summer I did like 4 weddings, booked them off Craigslist. And she was at every one of those. But then the more and more weddings I got, then it was like we are gone. So how did first off, how did you tie him into this long-term contract of working for you? But do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy being able to share that experience with him?
I do. I do. I enjoy spending time with him, and I enjoy him knowing a lot. I love to talk. I'm an extrovert. I love to share things. He's an introvert, so sometimes he's like, "Okay, pump the brakes. I need some time." But I love sharing everything, and so I really like him being on site with me. And sometimes, if we're traveling to California for a wedding, it's really nice to have him with me, traveling and being there the day of. He's very good. He follows instructions. He's wonderful. He's wonderful. A plus effort.
If he's listening this far, A plus. Yeah, no, man. No, it's so funny because, like you said, where he's an introvert. Because, like, Dorothy could talk to people for a million hours, right? If there would never be enough hours in the day that she would run out. And I'm good for like, the 8 hours I'm there, and then like I get home, Dorothy like, "Oh, how was it?" I'm like, "Don't talk to me." Like that was my, I'm done for the day. The tank is empty. But you're an introvert.
Right.
You thrive off that.
Yeah, as an extrovert, I thrive off talking to people, being around people. Of course, we all need our time to recharge. So sometimes when I've worked a 14-hour wedding and I come home at 2 a.m. and, I don't want to talk, I'm like, we'll talk. If he wasn't assisting me or I was out doing, assisting another planner, I'm like, I'll talk to you in the morning. I'm tired right now. My feet hurt. I need a glass of wine and I need to sit down. I've talked to people for 14 hours. So
Yeah,
we all need to recharge.
that's the disconnect. So it's like I've answered questions for all day. Like can't answer. I just can't answer any more questions right now.
I can't help you. You need to find that.
So besides just surviving 2020 and everything, goals, what are we working on here trying to move forward? Just continuing to kind of expand, or do you have any like fun projects or anything?
I was I've been obviously thinking about that all 2021. I think a lot of us are trying to think about how can we work with the trend that's happening right now of micro weddings and elopements. Because even with a vaccine and going into 2021, there still may be people that, want a smaller event. And I think that's wonderful because there is something so special about small weddings and elopements. There's wonderful things about large weddings. It's truly what you want for your celebration. So I've been looking into expanding into micro weddings, elopements, and possibly officiating. I'm thinking about that. So I want to be able to serve, if it's a right fit, if we're a right personality fit and goal fit, I want to make sure that I can tailor something to them and not say, well, I have these 3 packages. Can you fit? Because as we're seeing, people just can't fit into packages. And I want to give people that personal experience, that good relationship that we have going forward. So just thinking how best I can help.
It's interesting. You continue, using the words, wanting to serve, serving the client, back to where you wanted to be a public defender or whatever, but wanting to serve, but it's interesting. I mean, there's so many different, people that do weddings and some do it to make money. And obviously everyone wants to have success and whatever, but yeah, just that idea, I appreciate where you really keep coming back to that of, serving the client, of being of service, what do they need? How can I help benefit that? I mean, that's obviously great for any vendor type, but especially as a planner, I think that is, whether you are meaning to or not, it is interesting how you keep going back to those same thoughts, which is good, right? That's good to have that consistent through line.
Yeah, that it's authentic. It's something I believe in. So yeah. also I'm spending a lot of time with people. So you want to surround yourself with good people, with kind people, with people that have the same values and focus, whether they be clients, whether they be vendors. And 2020 has shown us that that's very, very important.
Yeah, this whole, booking for the deal and then being stuck with this vendor for a couple years, it is like you really got to think about it now. Like, do I want to deal with these people for a long time, both as a vendor and a client, right? Like we are in this for a long time now. So yeah.
Right. It's not just hey, come to my store, buy this product, and I see you later. It's, I'm with you for a year, now 2 years. Yeah. It's kind of like a marriage, it's got to be, it's relationships. You have to surround yourself with people that you want to be around.
Well, I just remember, the first like postponement we ever had was, with all the COVID stuff it was way earlier than like they were very.
Was it March? Was it in March?
Yeah, they were very on top of the ball. Like it was very like, hey, we're like no ifs, ands, and they just said, hey, we're next August, like we don't even want to talk about it. And I remember thinking like, well, because it was the first one, I'm like, well, what do you do? And I was like, wow, I better handle this right on my end because you don't want to have this impending doom in a year and a half. Like, well, remember when I was a jerk about them or tried to do whatever, and then now I got to, we're in each other's lives for a lot longer. We already were as vendors, but now a lot longer with everything going on than people necessarily anticipated.
Right. And it's so important to be kind to them from the start and through this whole process, even though we're going through our own, turmoil as business owners and, as people trying to deal with it. And, I really have to keep coming back to that. Like, I want to be kind to them because they're going through something that is, just not unimaginable, but in their view it is, and it's just something that they weren't anticipating. And we have to really come at them and be kind to them and think about how best, again, to serve them, even if we don't have the answers. That's a great question. I always say, I will get you that answer, or I will find someone to get you that answer.
It's a good, there's no dumb questions. That's a good question.
No, there's no dumb questions, especially after all these postponements, which is a new skill I think we can all put on our resumes of being able to handle postponements during a pandemic.
Bonus time here. Anything else you wanted to share or let us know about? Any other, fun tidbits or anecdotes?
Well, I know you watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I watch that as well. So that's a whole nother podcast.
Yes.
This whole season is a whole nother podcast.
It's been good.
If you're not watching, I highly recommend it. Last night's episode was really good. What did you think about, this is my question for you. What did you think about the season of Big Brother?
Well, two things. First off, so fans of The Bachelor, maybe you'd be a fan. On our XFL podcast, the Seattle Dragons quarterback is a 1-for-1 match with Chase and Nick that got voted off last week. It's if you go on my Twitter, XFL Mark, it is terrifying how, and I've been trying to get Chasen and Brandon Silvers on our podcast to prove that they're not. This is an ongoing joke for like the last 4 weeks, but this really has been a thing on the podcast of doing Bachelorette coverage on our XFL podcast. But it's a spitting image of them. You would think it was the same person. Big Brother was horrendous. Did you watch the All-Stars?
I got about halfway through. I was really excited. For All-Stars, and I heard who they were tapping, Dan, Derek. I'm like, oh, okay, Dan and I, we don't know each other. We just went to the same college, MSU, Michigan State. So I followed him and I love his gameplay, and I was hoping he would be on it, but with COVID, a lot of people weren't on it. So we had kind of I don't know. I wasn't happy. I was not happy with this season.
Yeah, Dan was like known as one of the greatest players of all time. And then we got a lot of people that like made it to third place and then just didn't, like in Christmas's case, literally just quit the game at final three,
she's dating Memphis.
I kind of suspect. I mean, they were kind of had a weird relationship in the house.
I sent that. I showed that to my husband
That's
I think
crazy.
yesterday. I'm like, oh, they're dating. So there you go.
Wow.
So I'm happy to talk Big Brother, Bachelor. I love RuPaul's Drag
Yeah,
Race.
yeah.
Started candle making this quarantine. So
Candle making for pleasure or trying to like Etsy shop.
just pleasure right now. I
That's
mean,
fun.
if you want a candle, you can have a candle.
That's great. Yeah, Bachelor, Big Brother. It's at least they made it through the season because I was watching Big Brother Canada when everything started and they shut down their season. So at least we got a full season of because it was. I think we were. It's
That's
like
right.
3 weeks in. If I mean, but it was enough time to like Dorothy and I were watching stuff and then just to have it be like, okay, we're all done. So that was interesting. So
Well, if any show is built for quarantine, it's Big Brother.
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Well, I so appreciate your time today. I'm so glad that we could finally kind of get this together. I
I
think
know.
we met and I said, we do this. And so we've gotten it. And I think we even scheduled this like a month in advance. We scheduled this a long time in advance. We really got it. We really locked it in. If people, obviously want to find out more about you, where would you have them check out for all of your stuff?
They can head over to my website, www.astandardofgraceevents.com. They can check me out on Instagram at A Standard of Grace Events. And you can see all the fun we create and a little bit of me. Yeah, good times.
It's fun. I appreciate it. I think, like I said, when we met, sometimes you just connect with people and you just think, okay, this is going to be a good person, or this is,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that other person, but no, this is good. I'm glad, and I mean it. I'm glad that we could get you on and share your voice. And I just think,
Thank you.
especially for planners right now, you're doing the Lord's work, and you're really out there. You're the frontline workers too, right? You're really out there. I mean, not to degrade what they're doing, but you guys really are dealing with the mess of everything. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And it's been wonderful. And, I'm always happy to come back on and, maybe we have a separate podcast about Big Brother and Batch.
We'll get through it tonight. She did the wedding photos and had like the panic attack. We got through that.
Ooh, that's, yeah.
Terrible looking photo.
You've got a good episode.
They did if anyone's even so. Let's say they did like these fake wedding photos, and she's been married before, and Zach or whoever the guy was has been married before, and so they're doing these photos, but they just like kept standing in front of this arbor and this cake, and then like they would take photos, and then they would change outfits and take photos. I'm like, these are like the worst. I mean, at least like pretend to go through and get photos of them. Like nobody wants 1,800.
Go around the property, like get different backdrops. But then they did change outfits. So.
Yeah, they did I saw like the trampoline and stuff, but
because what wedding doesn't have a trampoline?
Well, she had like they had like salsa outfits. It was a whole thing. But yeah, check out the XFL Markcast. Check out my Brandon Silver's theory. But you'll die. Like if you don't know any of this, this has been going on for weeks, but it's really funny. Yeah.
It's on my to-do list.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much again. We'll connect here hopefully at a real wedding here again soon. And
thank you.
Yeah, this has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.